it's important that we get the numbers and facts right when we look at crime in our city. So leaders around our city could have the right information, and that's what we're here for. So thank you for the opportunity. So in looking at the numbers as compared from 2021 and 2022, the very first thing I want to do, homicide numbers are down 1%. We are today 300 homicides. Last year there was 304 at this time, okay? We have been required by the FBI to now report crime in the NIBR system, and that's what we're doing. Even though 50% of the other agencies are not, the FBI required that, but they didn't, the government didn't put the funding behind it, so a lot of departments couldn't. So, but just want to go over some numbers quickly before I turn it over for Chief Martin to dive into the actual numbers for each district. So total crimes against persons down 8%. Total crimes against property are down 0.58%. Crimes against property, are 3.26% up. Overall crime is down 5.4%. Next slide. Even though we're reporting on the crime NIBR system, we still have to look at daily numbers. And so when I move resources around, that's what we have to look at. I know if you look at this page and it shows murders, 276, okay? That's because we had the staff review. So the actual NIBR crime reports, sometimes it's gonna be a month behind until we can get that staff review. So that's why you see the difference in the numbers. And NIBR counts incidents. They don't count bodies. We count bodies here, you know, for our daily reports. So those numbers will show, but what's important, you look at 2021, 276, 2022, 276. So those numbers are pretty much flat. But what I want to look at is the violent crime. Aggravated assault down 10%. Human trafficking down 37%. Kidnapping up 44%. Now we're looking at those numbers. A lot of that is domestics, where a parent has kidnapped, and so those are driving those numbers up. Murder rate is pretty much flat. I said it's 1%, but to us that's flat. Robbery down 7%. Sexual assault down 28%. Grand total of violent crime is down 10%. The numbers are don't lie, they tell the truth, and that's what we want to do. I'll turn it over to Chief Martin, but before I do that, I understand the challenges with each of our council members in your district. We want to move away from a system where we're actually getting away from district and beats. For your constituents, they're worried about what's happening in your district. And that's what we did with this report. We're going to continue to do that. I want to be more public facing to not only council members, but to our general public. So we're working on some ways to do that. Mayor has called for me and this police department to be transparent, and we want to be transparent in every way, especially when it comes to stats. So we're working on moving in that direction. Thank you.
Yeah, and if we can move to the next slide, please. Okay, as the chief talked about, we're working on trying to provide better data for you as council members about what is happening in your districts. Our stats, when we keep them, and crime when it's tracked in the city, traditionally is tracked by police district, police beat, because that's how we respond. That's by necessity. That's how our personnel are broken up. That's how our stations are organized. And so we track crime based on what police district it occurred in, what beat it happened in, and those do not always align geographically with the boundaries of your district. So we are working on, and this is the first step here that we have for you today, we are working on a standardized reporting process that will provide you with much more robust and much more accurate information about what is occurring in your district within your district boundaries. It's a work in progress, but this is step one today to get you this information for this presentation. So we're going to look for that here in the coming weeks. We will be coming up with some reporting for you by council district that should be much more robust and much more what you need. Next slide, please. All right, we're going to go through these district at a time. If you have questions, let me know. As the chief was talking about, violent crime in each council district as we go through overall is actually down. I've said in community member meetings before to community members, though, that if you're a victim, you want to know why. You're not worried about how far it's down. You want to know what we're doing. Well, obviously, as a police department, that's something we stay concerned about every day. Crime could be down 99%. We would be wanting to attack that remaining 1% and see what we could do about it. You're going to see some numbers that are up on some of these. The chief mentioned kidnapping before and that we're looking at that. Kidnapping is consistently up through a lot of districts. Thankfully, it is still a small number throughout the city. So when you do have a smaller number, you'll typically see 1 or 2 crimes different will make that percentage be much larger. So we'll go through that and cover it. So looking at District A, Councilmember Peck's district, overall violent crime down 14%. But you do see those 2 red marks. You've got kidnapping, you've got human trafficking there. Relatively small number differences, but the percentages look high. Next slide, please. Moving to District B for Councilmember Jackson, as you look at the bottom line there, it is down overall 15% in violent crime. Again, that kidnapping number is the standout, but I'm very happy to see there, even you have a murder decrease. And then aggravated assaults is something we track very closely because a lot of those involve shootings that were not fatal, where someone didn't die, either from the fantastic efforts of our EMS personnel or the trauma centers here in the city. Someone was shot at and did not pass away, which is fantastic that we're able to save that individual. But a lot of those crimes are I've used to call them murders that didn't happen because it wasn't because somebody didn't try. And so we look at those numbers, and when we can see those numbers trending downwards, that is a big positive as well. We always focus on the homicides because that's the ultimate in violent activity. But we look at those aggravated assaults as another indicator of how we're doing as far as overall violence level in the city. Next slide, please. Looking at District C, Councilmember Kamen's district, overall violent crime down 12, but again, you see that kidnapping number as a standout. Next slide, please. All right, District D, my old stomping grounds when I was the Southeast commander down there. Overall violent crime down 8%. You see a few more red numbers on there. Councilmember Shabazz actually wins the kidnapping number there because we actually have a decrease in that particular area there in District D. However, you see the small increase in murders. Even 1 is too many, but these numbers are what we have for right now. Next slide, please. District E, Councilmember Martin, again, overall decrease of 4%. The saving grace in this district is the overall numbers of crime are a little smaller than some of our other districts where there's more activity, but you do see red on the page here. We've got an increase in kidnapping, you've got human trafficking up, and here we see those aggravated assaults up. That's not, and murder as well, but that's not something we want to see in any district. The ag assaults being up 2%, and the murders being up 67%. 67% in this case is an increase of 6 murders, but in any one district, that's too many. So that's obviously something that we're very concerned about and that we continue to work on a daily basis. Next slide, please. All right, District F, Councilmember Thomas, we show an overall decrease of 10%. And again, you see that kidnapping number as the exception. Next slide, please. In District G, Councilmember Huffman, an overall decrease of 8%. Again, you see some numbers on there that are concerning to us. You know, the murder number is up. And in this case, the sexual assault number is up. It's up by 10 so far on the year total, which equates to 15%. That is something that those local station commanders and our special victims division work on every day. Those are crimes, obviously, that are highest on our list of things that we apply a lot of efforts to. Next slide, please. Looking at District H, Councilmember Cisneros, again, kidnapping is the outlier, but we have an overall decrease of 13% in violent crime. Next slide, please. In District I, Councilmember Gallegos, we see an overall decrease of 8% in violent crime, with the kidnapping number again being the exception. Next slide, please. In District J, for Councilmember Pollard, we see an overall decrease of 6% in violent crime. Again, that murder number is concerning, and in there we see a slight increase in robberies. That is something we have been noticing and working on. Former Chief McClellan used to say a robbery was a bad decision away from a murder because oftentimes that person is using a firearm. So we take those very seriously, and that's something we're looking into as well. Next slide, please. Councilmember K, District K, Councilmember Cassius Tatum, we see an overall decrease in violent crime of 12%, the exception here being murders, which are up by 2 as an 8% increase. Next slide, please. That's actually the last slide in the presentation. And any questions that any council members have about those numbers?
Councilmember Kingman.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a list of questions I'll probably need to be put back into queue. First off, thank you to the entire force, and thank you for these numbers. I think it's really helpful in communicating to residents what the facts are, right? There's a lot of fear-mongering and misunderstanding right now. To that point, could one of you speak to, I know like in District C, and you pointed this out in several slides, we're talking a lot about percentages, and when we see a red, we don't like to see that red, and we don't want to see that red. We want everything in the green. But, for example, kidnapping, one, you said that the majority of that is domestic related, so a parent that may not have custody of a child kidnapping that child. Is that correct?
It's driving the numbers, but I want to dive deeply into it before I just say that is the actual cause for it. It is driving the numbers up, but I want to go a little bit deeper into it, and I'll follow up with you and the rest of the council members.
That would be great, because again, that's concerning. But with that, any number is too high a number, but when we see something jump, let's say 63%, in other districts it may be as high, like G, for example, 250%. But is that, I mean, can you talk a little bit about why that number jumps up so much?
You have to look at the numbers. I was trying to see which one was
You want me to get that one?
Yeah. Yeah, you can go ahead, but if you have only 1 year, if you had like 2 murders, and we're just using that category, and then you now got 6 murders, the numbers are just 4 and actual incidents, but for percentage-wise, it looks just off the chart, so, but go ahead.
And to your point, looking at Councilmember Huffman's district, where kidnapping is up 250% on here, that's an increase from 4 in the first 8 months of last year to 14 in the first 8 months of this year. Any increase is something we're concerned about, anything that's something we're going to look at, but an increase of 10 looks different on paper than a 250% increase, which is very concerning and really jumps out to the eye. That is something we look at. The chief's correct in that driving force in a lot of these are, family issues. It's not always what you envision when you think of kidnapping of someone being snatched and taken, although that does happen. We did have an incident recently, Chief Slinkard was talking about, where 2 individuals were kidnapped and taken out of the city, but we were able to track them down and rescue them prior to them being harmed. So.
Yeah, and I think to that point, right, we're hearing a lot in the news and in headlines about percentages, but the actual numbers, I think it's important. So if you all can continue to provide us with that information,
along with the
that would be very
percentages.
helpful.
Correct.
I'm very relieved to see overall crime is down over 5%, violent crime down 10%. Chief, you talked about the need you're reworking how we manage our data, but can you talk about some of the challenges? Again, I talk constantly about our RMS system, our records management system, and what's needed there and what those hurdles may be.
I can't go too much into the RMS when the acquired system, but as we change equipment and processes, you got to fund that, and we're moving forward on that, but you got to change everything with that system. But I'm gonna let my expert speak up.
We do. We're working on a records management system that is older. It went into production in early 2013, and at the time, it takes a long time for implementation. It was already then had been surpassed the way technology is significantly by other projects. We can't talk specific to what's going on with that selection process because it is in the selection period, and purchasing has really strict rules on that, so it can't go into detail. But we are looking at replacing our records management system. Whatever we get, regardless of who we end up going with, it will be a much more modern, much more mobile, much more configurable system to us to allow us to look at data in a different way. An example would be the kidnapping and the council district breakouts. There's no reason why going forward in that records management system, we can't put something in place that would identify each of these calls by what council district they occurred in. Right now, we have to go through a process to take our district and beat numbers and convert them over to council district figures. But in a future system, it may be very easy just to turn on a switch and say, okay, let's look at it by council
it out
district
for
now.
us.
So most of these newer systems, they're web-based, they're fluid. You've seen the way technology changes in the palm of your hand over the last few years with phones. It's the same thing with these types of systems. So.
And so what you're saying is a lot of what we are having, the hurdles are antiquated systems that we are needing to revise and revamp. And to that point, Chief, I mean, Mayor, you have invested millions of dollars. Council has been investing. Is there anything that you have asked for that you have not been given at this point?
Absolutely not, and I brought up the funding piece. The funding is there, it just takes the purchasing process, and that's what I meant to say, and thanks for the support from this council and this mayor. I do want to say that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Alcorn.
Thank you, Mayor. And this is great news and really shows that the investments we're making are paying off, especially with violent crime. We hear a lot as council members about crime, and it really started right at the beginning in 2020. And there just seems to be this thought that crime, like you said at the beginning, Mayor, is really out of hand. So what would be helpful, and I certainly don't want to put anybody to a bunch more work, but what would be helpful to me, just not year over year, 21 to 22, but going back to 19, kind of when this conversation started.
Yes.
Because if the numbers were already high in 21, they might still be up a little bit. So it's good to have a little bit more of an historical perspective.
Yes,
so that's
ma'am.
just a suggestion.
Thank you. We'll get that
and
to you.
making them easy to get like this is super
Yes.
important. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Councilmember Huffman.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Chief Fenner, Chief Martin, Chief Slinkard, really every single police officer that does this job in our city and our county. It's a job that most of us would never, ever sign up to do, and so we appreciate everything. I would like to mention that District G is the only district that doesn't have a police station or even a storefront in their district. And so at some point, I'd like to look at, maybe having a storefront there. And thank you for bringing forth these numbers. But kind of like Councilmember Alcorn mentioned, this conversation goes beyond just last year. Last year was crazy.
Yes.
I mean, it was crazy. And so it's great that homicides are down 1%, that violent crimes are down 14%. But we're not better than we were 4 years ago. And that's not for lack of trying. This mayor has done an incredible job. He has given police everything that they need. The police department is doing their job. We know that you are shorthanded. So it is not for lack of trying. Our criminal justice system in Harris County right now is broken. We have, judges that are releasing violent repeat offenders out onto the streets on multiple bonds, appointed magistrates that are doing the exact same thing. The number of defendants charged with felon in possession of a firearm have doubled since 2018. And so while I appreciate these numbers, I think we need to look a little bit further back.
Thank you. And let me, Councilmember Huffman, let me agree with you. But let's bear in mind that local governments, we're at the bottom of the heap. Mm-hmm. We can't just talk about local government without talking about state government too. Police chiefs across the state of Texas did not ask for House Bill 1927. Permanent carry, no license, no training required. Police chiefs across the state of Texas spoke against that. And they warned that if it's passed, that crimes would increase by between 13 and 15% in this state. And it did, okay? No one wants to talk about guns. But most of these crimes were committed by people carrying guns. And nobody wants to talk about that. There are more guns on our streets than there are people. And they're in the hands of people between the ages of 16 to 24, and that age group is driving these numbers. So I agree. Locally, we have a responsibility, but we can't just start and stop at the local level. You got to look at the policies that are driving these crimes, and that includes the state of Texas.
Yes.
So let's have a very thoughtful conversation on what's driving things here. Now, what we can control is what we do here at City Council. Are we providing the police department and the officers with what they need? And we are. I mean, that's what we can do. Are we taking a holistic approach? We're doing that. Are we trying to deploy our resources based on what the data is telling us? And you can look at the individual districts. We know where we need to target resources. So we're trying to do that. So on our end, we're doing the best. And then the other thing too, and it's important to have a historical perspective, but we can't dismiss the fact that COVID hit us in 2020. I mean, we can't look at these numbers as if in the 1990s we were here and now we're here, and just totally ignore the fact that COVID did come ashore and stayed here at 2.5 years, and in part, still kind of here, and the impact that it's having on people. So that's not the only factor, but it's one of those variables that you at least have to put an asterisk by. The reason why I wanted this presentation this morning, because when people misrepresent the facts, they do a disservice to the men and women in blue who are out there every day working their butts off. And I think when they're helping to drive down the numbers, we need to give them credit for it, along with what the community and others are doing. But when you have our police officers who work in their normal shifts, and then they're working overtime on top of that, okay, and then they have their own family responsibilities, when the numbers, when we was like that here and we're starting to come down, I think we owe them the acknowledgement that what they're doing in part is working, along with everybody else. But if we ignore the numbers and keep saying Houston is the most dangerous city in the United States, who are we hurting? I mean, if I love my house, I'm not going to be talking against my house when the facts don't support it. Who are we hurting? And quite frankly, when the CNNs of the world start talking about these numbers and where the numbers out of control, like I saw the other night, they didn't mention Houston. They mentioned New York, Chicago, and LA. They didn't mention Houston. And in large part because when you look at the overall numbers of violent crime, unlike those cities, our numbers are down in comparison to last year. Now, we're not there yet, but let me give credit to the council members of your districts that are working in your own districts hard, okay? So let me give you all credit because you all are doing your own initiatives working with police. So that's the point. The point was to hear the numbers coming from HPD, not coming from me, okay? But the numbers come from HPD. And let's not bash our city by inaccurate information. That's the only thing. Okay. Councilman Pollard.
Thank you, Mayor, and good morning to everyone. Thank you, Chiefs, for your presentation. I want to give a special shout out to Chief Martin. I want to thank you publicly for your leadership on the license plate readers, working with our office on that to push it through. That's just one tool in the toolbox that we're adding on, and I think that's what we have to really focus on, putting tools in the toolbox. It's not going to be a one-size-fits-all approach that's going to solve the problem, but we have to have as many tools in the toolbox as possible. And I, too, would like to see a historical reference, but to get anywhere, you're going to have to go step by step. And to get back to whatever, 2018, 2017, or whatever, you're going to have to start somewhere. And where we're starting is today to see where we were last year, and we're lower than last year. So that's a step in the right direction. So then we have to take another step and try to get lower than that. So it's always going to be step by step. And I think if we continue to focus on technology, continue to focus on ways in which to be efficient, and then listening directly from you all on what your department needs will help us as council members, because I can say that I'm not a police officer and I don't know what it feels like to walk in your shoes, but I can't listen to you as you tell me, hey, you have the resources, you can make the policy, this is what we need. So my commitment is for us to continue to communicate and for you all to stay in contact with us to tell us, hey, for us to continue to drive the numbers down, this is what we need. And whatever you let me know, our office is committed to making that happen. So thank you all for that.
Thank you for the support.
Yeah, and thank you, Councilmember, for that. And to reflect back to the council members in this room, too, without the funding that was provided, that system would not have gone forward. And we are in the implementation phase now and hope to see great benefit from that investment.
Councilmember Knox.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Chief and Chief. Appreciate y'all coming today. I did serve in your shoes for a while, and I remember the 80s, and if I'm not mistaken, the crime rates in the 80s were as high or higher than what we're dealing with now. So crime is a cyclical process, and it never stops. It's like the stock market. It goes up, it goes down, it goes up, it goes down. We're living through a high time period right now. But I think that historical perspective is important, to see where the last high was and how long we had a low, and then we're back up now. So there's many reasons why crime increases, and none of it has to do with any particular one issue. The issue about the guns, for example, did not exist in the 80s. There was all kind of restrictions on guns, and yet the high crime rate existed then. So you can't really tie correlation unless you have some historical perspective. So when we look at year to year, that's great. But when we compare these 2 years to the past 6 years, we see an undisputable increase in the ticker, if you will. And what we need to start seeing is maybe we've seen a little, maybe we've made it to the top. I don't know if we have or not, but that's what we want to see, is that continued decline. And it's important that we share this information, but it's also important that we share it in the context of historical perspective. And I think that gives people a little bit more peace of mind. This is not a problem that we've never dealt with before as a council or as a police department. We will be successful, So it's just a matter of working through the process and doing what we
Yes.
do. So thank you for your work on this. Appreciate the number.
Can I say something right quick? Yeah. I want to acknowledge Chief Slinker, my partner in crime, and back. Thanks for the support on everything. But the historical standpoint is important, and we have provided those reports. But I want to be clear on something. No city in the nation experienced what we did with Hurricane Harvey. You got everything shut down, and then here come COVID. So you had 3.5 years or so, almost 4 years, with everything shut down. There's going to be a major increase as we try to catch back up. But I want to say one thing that's so important, that we all, and that's why I love this council, even if we disagree, we work together. I hope everybody in our great state, and our great nation does that. From the very beginning of my administration, you saw Troy Finner point no fingers, and this is not an attack on anybody here. This is just how I'm feeling right now as the chief in this city. It's time, high time for all of us to get on the same page of fighting crime and away from other motivations. And that's when we're going to be better. So we'll get whatever you ask for, and we want to be responsive to that. But why we keep talking about and printing what we already know, the challenges? And no, we didn't have those challenges in the 80s. You had a criminal justice system where people worked together. For whatever reason, and I don't want to get into that, it's cracked, and I agree with you, it's broken. And the challenge is, how do we get there? How do we get it back? How do we mend it back together? in light of everything that we're going through that you see around the nation. And I'll say it, politics just lost their mind. And that's why I don't say much about it. I love y'all. Not here to put anything down, but I know there's other business in council, but here in this great city, I hope that we come together to fight crime. Thank you.
Well, I've been in this business for 30 years, Chief, and I've seen a lot in 30 years. But I do know if you don't push back on a lie, it becomes the truth. Now, that I do know, okay? A lie becomes the truth if you don't respond.
Yeah.
Those are the realities. And what I also know is, yes, you're absolutely right. In this city, we face Harvey, it shut down our court system. And up through 2019, homicides was about 300 or less from 2016 to 2019. And it was in 2020 that it jumped. And then in 21, it jumped even higher. I know that for a fact. Up until 2019, then in 2019, homicides was 300 or less. But when you look at 2020, at the end of 2020, it jumped, it spiked. And 21 spiked even higher. And 22 started off like it was going to spike higher. And that's when we put in One Safe Houston, and things have started trailing down. So you got to come down from 22, which we're doing. You got to come down from 21, then you got to come down from 2020, and then go back. So it's like it takes time. Water recedes, and so you have to recede the crowd. Okay, Councilmember Pett.
Thank you, Mayor. I hear from my constituents a lot that crime is bad and the city isn't doing anything about it. But I really can't think of anything else that the city could do that you have not already put the resources into. You've acknowledged the need for more police officers, and we're moving towards that direction. The technology, the overtime, I mean, everything that you've put into combating crime, we've seen the difference. But in District A, it seems like it's the same few people committing the same crimes over and over again. And just like what Councilmember Huffman said, at the court level, when the judges are letting people out over and over again, they are committing the same crimes over and over again. And I hear this from the police officers that I talk to on a daily basis, that it's the same people committing these crimes, especially in District A. So do you have stats on how many people are the same people committing similar crimes? Because I know for the District A stats, like some of those robberies, it's the same people doing robberies over and over again. So it seems like it's high, and it is high, but if we could just do something about those particular people that are causing these issues in our community.
We are focusing in on that, and we will work on getting some reports, but traditionally nothing has changed. There's a small number of individuals that commit a lot of crimes, violent and property crimes. And if we would focus more, and not only just police, this is a social issue problem as well, okay? If we focus in on those individuals, and especially violence, because that's what I'm concerned about. Every crime. I'm concerned about quality of life as the chief of police, but I'm concerned about those violent individuals. And I agree with everybody. It's a place for them, and I've said that, and I'm non-apologetic about it. Lock them up, and that's what we have to do as a county, and as a city, and as a nation for that.
Vice Mayor Pro Tem Castigator.
Thank you, Mayor, and Chief Fenner and your team for this information. I love the conversation about the historical perspective, and I like that people want to talk about history when it comes to HPD. But I think that this information is going to be pleasantly received by our constituents. When we have our monthly PIP meetings, we look at crime based on the beats, and we have to overlay it on our neighborhoods and our management districts. But this is a really good tool for us to be very specific in our districts, and I think residents are going to be happy about having the information that relates to where they currently live.
Yes, ma'am.
And so thank you for providing it in this manner. And I do think it's digestible, and it also gives us an opportunity to work on pinpointing areas that we can work on specifically in our geographic areas. So this is valuable information, and we look forward to continuing the work that we do for Houstonians every day.
Thank you.
Councilmember Carolyn Evans Shabazz.
Thank you, Mayor, and certainly I want to thank you and, Commander Martin. You were only with me for a minute, but I really did appreciate your service in the Southeast Command Station. And I want to get ahead of everybody else. On October the 4th, we do have National Night Out in the CUNY homes. And Chief Fenner, I want to invite you before anybody else gets the opportunity to come and join us for National Night Out. And other police officers, if they could come out into the community, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Kamen.
Thank you, Mayor. Chief, going back to your comments about, Houston is doing everything right at this point. We're doing all that we can at this point. I also pulled, we're talking a lot at the state level and the responsibility there that we all have to be together in addressing this, not just pointing the fingers. And when I pulled up some criminologist data most recently that assessed all of the major cities in the country. Houston's towards the bottom of the list when it comes to the murder rate right now. Mayor, I counted at least 31 major cities with higher murder rates than the city of Houston per capita. When you look at all of the numbers, Chief, and then we talk about the lies that are being told or the factless comments that are being stated about the state of crime in this city and the fear-mongering, I'm very concerned about, to Councilmember Huffman's point, the morale at HPD. This job is hard enough as it is without all of the noise going on. One, can you speak to that at all? But also my ask is to please take back to every officer our appreciation for what they are doing, and the numbers show what they are doing right now.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that, because it's terribly important with morale, with our officers. Everybody should say thanks, and I think the mayor said that, and I know we get a lot of support from this council. So we got to get the facts right, okay? There is room for improvement, and I don't say that we do everything right, but we do a pretty good job here with a supportive council and a supportive mayor. So the facts are important. The numbers shouldn't lie. They should be true, and so please, when you see officers, and I say to our public, just thank them. And if we got to win, if crime is going down in light of everything, all the challenges that we face, don't worry about the chief. I can take it. To our men and women on the front line and our support teams that work terribly hard. Don't forget about our dispatchers, emergency communicators. Please say thank you. And as we go through and take a critical look at everything that we need to, historical standpoints and everything else, let's just say thanks. It helps. It really does. So thank you for bringing that up. And to another point, I put in my notes that we do need to start public-facing the crime stats, our comparison of homicide, and put that out there every month. If there's some confusion on that nationwide, that's something that I asked Commander Martin, let's put it out there. So you'll see that coming.
Thank you. Well, it is important. We certainly want them, all of our police officers and support team, civilians included, to know that they are very much appreciated, that their work is very much noticed, and that their work is making a difference, okay? And that there be no mistake. In this city, we support our men and women in blue because they have difficult jobs on the streets, and then they have to go home, okay? So we need to be mindful of that. So, members of City Council? Jackson. Okay, Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you, Mayor, and I just want to say thank you, Chief Fenner and Chief, for the presentation. It's very encouraging to see that the District B numbers are down, crime is down by
We need to keep
15%,
them
and
down.
so that's exciting. You know, we've had a lot of shootings out in the district, and so as we begin to, move forward with the credible messenger and start putting credible messengers in the neighborhood, this is helpful to basically help us direct what neighborhoods to put these credible messengers in. As I said before, time and time again, police can't do it on their own. It requires community help. One of the programs that I mentioned to you that we're going to start, the Operation Occupy convenience stores, where community going to start setting up at community stores with tables and pamphlets to encourage people to take advantage of the opportunities and the programs that's available here at the city, like the reentry program, the jobs program. And so just knowing, where to go is going to be helpful. So look forward to the continued partnership with you. And Mayor, thank you for just the investment in these programs. Everyone is very excited, and I just know we are headed in the right direction. So
Thank you,
keep up the
Councilmember
good work.
Jackson.
Thank you, Councilmember Plummer.
Thank you, Mayor. And I just want to say thank you as well for all the work and sacrifice, and my sincerest condolences for Kelvin, a patient friend, and he'll be missed. But I know y'all step on the line every single day for us to protect us, and I'm incredibly grateful. Thank you.
Okay, if you all would join me in thanking the members of HPD, the police officers, as well as the